Good morning and welcome to AT Talks, a collaboration between Michigan Assistive Technology Loan Fund and Disability Rights Michigan. I'm Tracy Strating, Director of Michigan Assistive Technology Loan Fund. I'll begin with a few housekeeping items. You may enter your questions during the presentation and there will be a Q&A at the end. Please type your questions into the chat box or raise your hand so that we can unmute you to ask your question aloud. I'm honored to introduce Lori Timney, who recently celebrated 8 years as an accessibility relationship manager with T-Mobile. She is deaf and holds a master's degree in software engineering, as well as a certified professional in accessibility core competencies certification from the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. Based in New Jersey, Lori is passionate about sharing information about T-Mobile's accessibility services that enable people with hearing loss and/or speech difficulties to make and receive phone calls. Today, Lori will present on relay services for people with speech difficulties. Take it away, Lori.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for such a warm welcome. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Lori Timney, and you can see that I am deaf myself. I'm using a sign language interpreter. We've got two sign language interpreters here on the call to help facilitate communication both ways. One of our interpreters here is Jody, and later you will see Brandon, and they sort of take turns. I'm going to start showing my PowerPoint presentation, so bear with me while I take a few minutes to get that started. Okay, this first slide I'm going to be showing. I'm going to be sharing information about relay services for people with speech disabilities today. And I'm sure you may be wondering about the word relay. What does that mean exactly? You may remember the definition of the word relay means to pass information from one person to another person, and then passing that information back and forth. It's the same concept as a relay race, where one person is running and they hand off that baton to the next individual, and then the next individual, and then the next person. So the purpose of relay services is to enable people who have a speech disability to be able to make phone calls to another person through a middle person, and that person is a relay operator. And I'm going to explain in more detail on the next upcoming slides. There's two different types of relay services that I'm going to share with you today. The first one is called speech to speech. And for abbreviating those terms, we say STS. And this service is designed for people who have speech disabilities, but love to talk for themselves on their phone calls. Even if people use an assisted a voice device, they can use this service as well. My favorite thing about using speech-to-speech service is this is available at no cost to people with speech disabilities. That basically means it is absolutely free. And I'm sure you're thinking, how is that possible? Nothing is really free in this life, right? And you're right about that. Nothing is really free. But I'm going to explain how that is possible. Some of you may be familiar with a law called the ADA, and that stands for the Americans with Disability Act. And that is about equal access for all. For example, some buildings have a ramp, and that is for people that use wheelchairs to have access in and out of a building. And do you think those people in wheelchairs have to pay for the ramp? And the answer is no, they don't pay for that ramp. And it's the same concept for relay services, and that's available at no cost to the users. And that is because it's paid for by the federal government because that act went into law. The nice thing about this service is that it can be used by other people who are experiencing temporary speech disability. It might be right after they have an operation on their throat. And it also is for people who do have permanent speech challenges. I'm going to show you a short and sweet video, and this shows different people with different types of speech disabilities who like to use the speech-to-speech service. Bear with me for a second, and I'll start that video.
Different people with speech disabilities talking on the phone.
About 8 million American adults have a speech difficulty that makes using a telephone challenging. Some speech difficulties are temporary, and some are considered permanent. Almost all the challenges are increased when talking on the phone.
Cindy holds a camera, then places a call on her phone.
Speech-to-speech provides the users the opportunity to use the phone comfortably, without feeling rushed or anxious.
Inside a camera shop, an employee answers the phone.
With speech-to-speech, potentially stressful calls to businesses, doctors, schools, or anyone can be made with confidence.
Focus and Frame, this is Diana. How may I help you today?
Relay operator with headset connects call via computer.
Hello, a person is calling you through speech-to-speech. This is operator 22150. Have you received a speech-to-speech call before? Not that I recall. The person who is calling you can hear and has a speech disability. They will speak directly to you, and I will repeat what they say.
Good morning. This is Cindy. I really care. Care for someone more basic than I do.
Good morning, this is Cindy. I really do like my mirrorless camera, but I'm looking for something a bit more basic for my nephew. Hi, Cindy. Thanks for calling. Is your nephew just starting out, or is he experienced? We have sales on mirrorless and DSLR cameras.
With speech-to-speech, the operator becomes your voice, adding the nuance and emotion you want. The other party talks directly to you. You can use speech-to-speech for any phone calls, including conference calls.
Different people with speech disabilities share their thoughts.
Speech-to-speech is a wonderful service that has dramatically improved my life, and I believe it can help anyone with a speech difference.
Even someone like me that had a temporary speech disability.
It makes me more independent.
I feel a bit more confident and comfortable. Speech to speech helps me make a better phone call.
I don't have to be the person with the trach, just Cindy having a conversation with somebody that I need to talk to.
Cindy with her adult nephew as he opens a birthday gift of a camera.
New Jersey speech-to-speech service is available at no cost to people who have a speech disability and who live or work in New Jersey. Just dial 711 on any phone and ask for speech-to-speech. To learn more about New Jersey speech-to-speech service, go to www.njrelay.com/STS.
A New Jersey Relay logo appears along with njrelay.com and dial 711.
Hello again. You may notice that I show the New Jersey Relay logo, and this video was originally developed for the state of New Jersey, but this service is really the same for all of the states in the US. I also want to share with you, you may have noticed that our relay operator for the speech-to-speech video helps facilitate communication between the person with a speech disability and the other party. And the relay operators are trained to understand a wide range of different speech patterns. And they're trained by listening to recordings of several different types of speech. So they become very, very familiar with different types of speech disabilities. Next, I'm going to explain how a person is able to start using speech-to-speech service. And you simply dial 711. And then when the person answers, ask for a speech-to-speech operator. Or if you prefer, you can dial the 10-digit number that you see here, and that is to be connected directly with a speech-to-speech operator. Sometimes you'll say speech-to-speech operator or relay operator, but no, when I use those words, they're interchangeable. Or if your phone happens to be a T-Mobile phone on the T-Mobile network, you simply dial *787, and that connects you directly with a speech-to-speech operator. Once you are connected with a speech-to-speech operator, you simply provide the phone number of the other party that you wish to call. For example, if you want to call a flower shop, or perhaps a doctor's office, or a veterinarian to check on your puppy, once the three people are connected, it becomes sort of a three-way conversation. The user simply starts talking. The relay operator will then hear the speech-to-speech user and what they're saying. And if necessary, they'll repeat their words for clarification to the other party that they are dialing. When the other party talks, they speak directly to the speech-to-speech user, and the speech-to-speech user can hear them. That's it. It's really simple, right? I also want to add that the user has options. They can ask the operator to repeat the words they use for clarification, or they can ask them to repeat everything that they say word for word to the other party. So they do have that option. And like I explained on the previous slide, there are a couple of different ways to connect with a speech-to-speech operator. Again, you can dial 711, and that is the same number that you use for all state relay services. But when you use this option, you do have to ask for a speech-to-speech operator, and they will provide a different operator for the speech-to-speech user to use. If you prefer not to have to ask for that, hey, can I have a speech-to-speech operator? Then you can dial either the toll-free number, and that's 877-787-2660. And that allows you to connect directly to a speech-to-speech operator without having to ask. And then the third way is if you are a T-Mobile customer, you can use the short code and dial *787 on your phone. And the easiest way to remember that number is if you look at the dial pad and the letters associated with the numbers, you push *STS, and that's really what *787 is. We also have a new feature called STS Shortcut Icon, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that on the next slide. And this slide explains more about using that *787 feature. And like I said, it's also the same as dialing *STS, speech-to-speech. T-Mobile is the only provider that does offer that unique *787 feature, and that's available anywhere for people who have phone service with T-Mobile. I'm really excited to share this next part with you, and this is about the STS shortcut icon, excuse me, and that's for people who have T-Mobile phone service for their phone. And this is great for people who have speech disabilities, in addition to perhaps mobility disabilities or mobility challenges. And this really helps to reduce the number of times you have to dial to make your speech-to-speech call. And the speech-to-speech shortcut icon is available on both iPhone and Android. The nice thing about this is that you don't have to download, you don't have to worry about consuming too much of your phone memory. It's very simple to make speech-to-speech calls this way. And it's really easy to use it. And the website has a complete set of instructions on how to do this. And then once you use it one or two times, it really becomes super easy to use. But it does have instructions on that site. And if you see the picture here on the slide, you can see the picture of the cell phone, and it does have an icon that says STS, and that is what it looks like. You just click on it and use it. It's quite easy. Some people who have a speech disability or a speech challenge, they've said to me, but my speech is so difficult for people to understand. And I just want to let people know our speech-to-speech operators are trained extensively to understand speech patterns and different speech disabilities. And you may remember that I did mention before that the operators hear different recordings of different speech difficulties and different speech patterns, and they do become quite comfortable in understanding a wide range of speech patterns and speech disabilities. And their role is to simply help facilitate that conversation and communication. The user can feel free to take all the time they need to express what they want to say to the other party that they're calling. Our speech-to-speech operators will help, and there's no time limit, there's no time pressure on the speech-to-speech user. I also want to share with you that you see in the picture on this slide, you'll notice that our speech-to-speech operator is wearing a headset, and that is how they do their job. They also monitor the progress and the conversation on the computer to make sure that they stay connected with both the user and the other party that the speech-to-speech user is wishing to call. I want to share with you a few facts about speech-to-speech. You can use any type of phone. It could be a smartphone. It could be a flip phone. It could even be a payphone if you could find one out there. There's really no special equipment that you need to use this service. You just simply need a phone. You can also use other providers. You could use T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, really anything to dial 711. And you can also use that 10-digit number to connect directly to the speech-to-speech operator. When I talked about using the shortcut icon and *787, those two features, you do have to be a T-Mobile customer to use. Suppose the user wants to call someone, perhaps their grandmother, who speaks only in Spanish. They can still use the speech-to-speech service and chat in Spanish. The only thing with that is that both parties have to be using the same language. For example, if you're speaking to someone in Spanish, they have to respond in Spanish. The operator will not translate between English and Spanish. It has to be directly Spanish to Spanish or English to English. So that concludes me talking about the speech-to-speech service. Now I'm going to move on to another relay service that we offer that also benefits people with speech disabilities. And this service is called T-Mobile IP Relay. And this has become quite popular. I'm going to explain more about this service. You can use any internet connected device to use T-Mobile IP Relay. You can use a smartphone, you can use a tablet, you can also use a laptop or a desktop computer. And really how this works is really the same concept as speech to speech, but it's typing and reading versus using your voice. Again, my favorite thing about this service is it is available at no cost to individuals, basically meaning that it's free. And I'm going to be explaining about how IP Relay works. So there's two ways this service works. You can simply go to IP Relay or to the IP Relay website on your laptop, your tablet, your computer, or your phone. You type in the phone number of the other party that you wish to connect with. It could be a restaurant to make reservations for dinner. And then once you connect with an IP relay operator, the operator will read what you typed to them. And they'll speak those words that you typed out to the other party. The other party would then listen to the operator read what you typed, and they'll respond back to the relay operator with their voice. The relay operator then listens to what the other party says, and they type those words back to the IP relay user. And then the IP relay user then reads what the operator typed. And there's no talking required on their part. They're just typing and reading. The other way that you can connect with an IP relay operator is on your smartphone or tablet. You can download the app. There is an app for this service. And just so you know, the very first time you use IP relay, you do have to register as a user with your name, your address, and such. But that after you register the first time, you can use it quite easily going forward. You simply type in the phone number of the other party you wish to connect with, and away you go. And IP relay is also available in Spanish, but as the same with speech to speech, it's Spanish to Spanish or English to English. There's no translation available. The cool thing about IP relay is that you can have the conversation recorded. And that is done through a transcript that's available after. So you can see what you typed and then reread that on the transcript. And it's very useful. For example, if you're calling an airline and they're giving you the confirmation number, your flight time, details of when you leave, when you arrive, all of that stuff, you can save that transcript and review that later and make note of it. And if you want to try using T-Mobile IP Relay and the app on your smartphone, you can download that from the Google Play Store and also the Apple App Store. And this shows you what the icon looks like on the picture here on the slide. And I know you may be thinking it's similar to texting to another person. You know, you text back and forth, people read text messages back and forth. But the challenge is not all places accept text messages. For example, your doctor office, they typically don't respond to a text message that you say or that you send. They would expect that you would call them to make your appointments or whatever. So this is nice. IP Relay can allow you to text and the other person talks on your behalf. So it really is a seamless service. And you may be wondering why IP Relay? And this is for people with speech disabilities. Yes. And some people with speech disabilities love to talk and chat on the phone, but sometimes they may be feeling like they need a break from using speech to speech. They're tired of using their own voice and they'll switch over to IP Relay because they may be feeling tired of using their voice after a long day of work, or maybe they just need to rest their throat and their voice, or they may be in a noisy environment like the airport and they don't feel like they want to yell or have to talk loud or battle that background noise and talk on the phone. They also may want to be, checking with their wife to make sure they bought the right kind of shampoo, or, whenever they went to the grocery store and they just don't feel like talking, and they can use IP relay really easily and get the answer quickly. And, you always want to make sure you get the right shampoo for your wife. Or maybe they want to share some exciting news or exciting information about sports. Oh, did you know that, did you know the score for the football game? Or, but they don't want to have to use their voice. They can switch to text, and get that exciting news update. And people with speech disabilities can use either speech to speech or IP relay, or they can use both. They don't have to commit to one, obviously not at the same time, but people may want to um, vacillate between those two services based on their mood or the situation. And the best part about this is both of those services are free of charge. And this is information about our relay operators. And for speech to speech, they are specially trained to understand a wide variety of different speech patterns. Their role is to simply repeat the spoken word from the speech to speech user to the other party and make sure that communication is clear. They want to make sure that the speech to speech user is heard and understood. And the IP relay operators, their role is to simply read what the user has typed and voice that out to the other party. And then when the other party speaks back, they listen and the operator types that back to the IP relay user to read. And all of the relay calls are completely confidential. And I do want to add that there's no record of the phone calls and the conversations that happen through speech to speech and IP relay. They're not kept. Those conversations are not recorded or stored. They're automatically deleted at the end of the phone call. I talked about IP relay, the second service that we've talked about here today. And this is, well, there's the two services I've shared with you today. I've shared with you about speech to speech and IP relay. We have a wonderful feature that people can use for both speech to speech and IP relay service. And we call that the customer profile. The user can save time setting up their customer profile. For example, they could type in their frequently dialed numbers, and those can be stored in the system. They may put in their doctor or, their relatives or their friends or their favorite restaurants. And then the user can then select if they prefer to have a male or a female operator. That's something else that's stored in the profile. And some people don't have a preference and they say either is fine. Some users, specifically male users, prefer to have a male operator because they don't want to give the idea or the impression that the user is a woman when they really are a male. So some people have a preference when it comes to gender with the operator, and you can add that in the profile. When the person sets up a profile. They can do speech-to-speech call setup, and that is for a person who struggles to speak. Maybe the user wants to call the pharmacy and ask some questions about their medication. And some of those medication names are long and very tricky to say. But the user can type in the speech-to-speech call setup notes. They could add, a few sentences in, like these are the names of my medication. So then the operator is familiar with exactly what that speech-to-speech user is wanting to say as it relates to specific words or terminology. Another example of the speech-to-speech call setup is if the user knows that they have to go through like a phone menu or a setup menu where you have to press 1 to connect with the right person, press, another button 7 to connect with the right person, and they have to go through that menu and you have to push different numbers. It can be challenging for a person with a speech disability to say those words quick enough to kind of navigate that menu, because that's sometimes a timing thing. And the speech to speech call setup, they can say, push 2, push 1. So the operator is ready to go quickly through that menu for the speech to speech user until they finally connect with the correct person. That's another nice feature. And we have another wonderful thing in the customer, that's another wonderful thing in the customer profile. And the customer profile is available through the website, and you can get there on your computer or your tablet and your smartphone, and you can make those adjustments anytime before your speech-to-speech call as it relates to the notes. And you can use the customer profile through IP Relay as well. Hopefully this helps you understand how speech-to-speech and IP Relay services work for users. Suppose you meet someone and you notice that they have a speech challenge. It's always a good idea to ask that person what their preference is on how they want you to connect with them over the phone. We have a lot of different technology available in the world today, and some people prefer different types of services. Some prefer, oh, I can talk fine. If you don't mind, just be patient with me and take a little extra time to listen. But some people say, yeah, I would really prefer that you call me through the speech-to-speech service. Then you can then simply dial 711. You can then ask for a speech-to-speech operator and then provide the number of your friend that you're trying to call. And then you would then connect, and that would be a 3-way type phone call. And your user may say, or your friend may say, please call me through IP Relay. Then they can give you their IP Relay phone number. So then you would simply dial their phone number. You would automatically then be connected with an IP Relay operator who would facilitate that conversation. And they would already be connected with that person because they would give you a unique IP Relay phone number that's assigned to you upon registration. And if you're using either speech-to-speech service or IP Relay for the first time, it's okay for you to connect with the operator and say, hey, this is my first time using this service. Can you help me kind of figure out how this works? As I'm talking with the other user, the or the operators are happy to explain the process to you and make you feel comfortable and ready to make that phone call, then connect you with the user you're wishing to call. On the other hand, if you receive a phone call and you hear the word relay, for example, hi, this is relay operator XYZ, please don't hang up. A lot of people receive those calls from someone who has a speech disability, or perhaps is deaf, or perhaps is hard of hearing, or maybe is deafblind. And those people are just wanting to connect with you and talk with you. I would like to share with you, even though I'm based here in the state of New Jersey, my colleagues that I work with are based all over the United States. Unfortunately, we do not have one in your beautiful state of Michigan. However, we would be more than happy to connect with you for the purpose of setting up an exhibit booth or presentation or sponsorship or partnerships to do more presentations. Please feel free to reach out with me. This has my email address. That is Lori Timney at t-mobile.com. And I believe, if my memory serves me right, we have about 30 people in a similar role as mine all over the US who can also assist with presentations and such. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint slides, and then I will open the floor for any questions.
On behalf of the group, before we move to questions, I want to say thank you, Lori, very much for the presentation. If someone you know missed the presentation, it will be uploaded to MI-UCP's YouTube channel within the next 2 weeks. But again, thank you, Lori, very much for all the information about communication. And I also want to take just a moment to say thank you to Jody and Brandon for making this seminar more accessible, and also to Jessica, our cart captioner, who helps that she and her colleagues help us every time we do these presentations, because access is more than just having a computer. And then please plan also to join us for our August 13th at 10 a.m. For another assistive technology topic. And we want to thank you all for attending. And now, Lori, if you want to either read any questions people have in the chat, or if you raise your hands, I can unmute you to ask Lori the question. I did have one response. Nicola had to leave, but she said she was that it was great information and she had to leave early. I did let her know that I had dropped the slides in the chat, but I will make sure that she gets those by email as I do in case she's already left.
Yeah, wonderful. This is Lori. Again, I just want to let you guys know, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'm happy to answer those.
I have one while we're waiting. I have a customer who has borrowed from us before who is blind, who called me yesterday, very excited about a new Google phone that has no screen and that is entirely speech operated. And I said to him I would bring it up and just see what other alternatives that you may be aware of, since that's sort of your expertise. So if you have an answer for options he might look at beyond that Google phone, I would love to know to share with him next time I speak to him.
Tracy, that is really a good question. I typically focus on services for people who struggle to hear or speak on the phone. Oftentimes, people who are blind or have a visual impairment, they tend to hear fine and they can really use any phone. So, I'm glad that your colleagues were able to, or this person is able to find the Google phone. It means that they are able to hear and talk just fine, which is great. But I tend to focus on services.
So sorry. I thought I apologize. I thought the equipment side of it and what other companies might offer, that kind of thing might be in your purview. So I apologize for the question in the wrong venue. But I will look and see who else we might find so that he has consumer choice around what phone to get and what service to get with that phone. Does anyone else that is still here have a question? I want to make sure we get to your questions before we let Lori go.
This is Lori here. Tracy, no, I understand what you're talking about with the phone. I'm not really necessarily someone who focuses on equipment, but like I said, services. But I would like to share with you that those two services that I just presented about, the speech-to-speech service and IP Relay, it's really for people with speech disabilities. However, we do have other relay services for people who prefer to communicate through a Braille device, like deaf-blind people. And we also have another relay service that is for people who struggle to hear or who are deaf or hard of hearing. So we do have other relay services specifically for people's different disabilities. And we really want to empower people to make their own phone calls anywhere and connect with whoever they want. But my favorite thing about it is these are at no cost to people to use. So
well, I did think actually I had an issue a couple of weeks ago where our loan coordinator was communicating with someone and they could not understand one another. It was a couple of different things that were leading to that issue. Um, uh, English being a second language for our loan coordinator, and then the person had their pattern of speech and were somewhat elderly and needed the two of them had, so she told me, and I was going to call that person. It sounds like there's a solution if that individual is willing to to work with us in using that the two of them could do that. I'm sorry, communication directly with one another, which would be ideal for both us and the customer. So I took note again of your services, even though I was already aware of them, to be sure to let her know that she could offer that to the individual.
yeah, it's really a wonderful solution for that situation. So yeah.
Okay, well, seeing no other question. Oh, I'm sorry, Lori, go ahead. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's all right. I just wanted to add, if you think of any other questions after this presentation, you can just email me. My email address is Lori, Lori, dot Timney, Timney at t-mobile.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I'll be happy to respond as quickly as I can. Thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. I really appreciate it. And thank you to you, Tracy, and thank you to our interpreters here, Jody and Brandon. And thank you for the captioner too, Jessica. Really appreciate that. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks.
You too, and thank you all. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.